Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high. Cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live. Somebody, let's go.
Good morning. Good afternoon and good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys are all doing well out there and enjoying your day, making it positive, making it amazing, making it everything you need it to be, and then some. There's been a lot going on over the past couple days, guys. There's been a lot going on over the past couple hours. We got to get down to the nitty-gritty of things here in just a minute because there's just so much going on here. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely been going down those rabbit holes like crazy overnight, just looking at certain things, just diving deep into this thing. And it sometimes you just gotta get yourself back up and come back up for air every once in a while. And it's been an insane amount of stuff that's been circulating. The theories are running rampant right now. It is absolutely crazy. We got a lot to go into. We got a very special guest coming on here in just a minute. But I just wanted to say this really quick. Quick reminder, some housekeeping. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. Crush it. Make it scream out your name, so on and so forth. Get it past 300 likes as I see a bunch of y'all starting to file in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to every single last one of y'all. And for those of y'all who are just watching the show for the very first time, hey, do me that solid. Hit that subscribe button, baby. Hit that subscribe button. You know your boy's working hard out here in these streets, horde out here in these streets to give you guys the information and stories that you need for the day. And hopefully after today's show, maybe we'll be on a better track of clarity, right? Instead of all this mucky muck that's being flown around. I do have somebody very special coming on in just a minute before I show you guys. But before I need to show you guys this little article here really quick. But we have somebody coming on. Private investigator, Jensen. He's a beast in his own field. He's going to be here to debunk, maybe confirm any of these crazy theories that are being thrown out here. And there's many. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So don't forget, hit that like button down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let's get down to the nitty gritty, shall we? All right, y'all. As you already know, we have been talking about this situation, about the Idaho. They're calling it the Idaho 4, where 4 students, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, and Madison, all their lives were taken in one house, in one night. We are still reeling over this. All of us, every single last one of us that have been, that this story has reached out to. Some of us, majority of us, have definitely dove down a deep, dark rabbit hole of theories and ideas on what could have happened to these 4 children, these 4 kids. Now, there is something I do want to show you guys before we jump into everything. And this is what they're saying as of late, okay? Now, this is something I saw yesterday. I didn't get a chance to show it to you guys on yesterday's show, but I wanted to show it to you guys now, all right? Internet sleuths spot mystery group walking in background of body cam footage 2 doors down from where the incident went down just 10 minutes before cops announced gruesome demise of these 4 students. Now, we have the footage. We are going to be looking at that very, very shortly. But just to go through these bullets really quick, a group of people could be spotted walking hurriedly past the police near the home where 4 Idaho University students were slain. Body cam footage of officers stopping 3 students for suspected drunk driving revealed the group passing by in the background. The incident took place just moments before police suspect the unalivings took place, and only 2 houses down from the crime scene. I mean, that's a little too close for comfort if you really think about it, okay? Police have said body cam videos hold no evidence of the case, but it remains unclear if they've identified and interviewed the group walking by. Little headway has been revealed in the case, as we already know so far, and we have already waltzed into a full month of them in this deep dive investigation around this unthinkable crime. Okay. And they have gone without any arrests so far, zero, leading to rampant theories spreading on social media. And there's a reason why I mentioned the last part of that little bullet point here, because I do have somebody very special on to talk about not only just this, his own ideas of what has happened, but also to possibly confirm, debunk, whatever, or at least speak on these other theories that are very practical, from the practical to the absolutely wild. All right. So please welcome a good family friend of the show, private investigator Jason Jensen. How are you doing, my brother? Good to see you.
Good, bud. How are you?
I'm good, man. I wish you'd be on here for under, more joyous reasons, but obviously this is what you do, right? You investigate certain situations, missing persons, murder cases as well. So I'm really, really honored to have you on here to talk about this in more detail, because there's a lot to go through. And so I appreciate you blessing us with your time, man.
I appreciate it, Pascal. It's always a good time to be on the show with you.
Appreciate it, man. So let me ask you this. Now, I know that you're kind of just hearing about this four people walking by in the background of this body cam footage. And in fact, I do want to show you guys that video real quick so we can all see this together. And it's very short. It is very, very quick. But I wanted to show it to you guys so that, our guest can take a look at it as well. And maybe he can put in his 2 cents in here as well. Let's take a look at this video. And like I said, it is short. It is very, very short. And there's no need for any audio because it's just them walking right by. And if you, just so you know, they're going to be circling this area right here to the far right of your screen. So just keep your eyes open because it's brief. Ready? Here it is. Again, I'll play it. I mean, it's seconds, okay? It is seconds, if even that, milliseconds. But if you could see here, of course, I had to grab this from another show, but if you could see, bang, 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 bang. There's four people whipping by the scene, quickly whipping by, okay? I'll play it one more time, and then, of course, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Jason. One more time. Let's do that again. Now, I have my own theories, personally. I have my own personal theories, but, again, if you see it, I know some of you guys are looking on your phones and all that. It's very, very tiny, etc. But at the same time, there are four. You can make out four heads whipping by this area off to the right of the screen. Okay? But I have to ask you, Jason, after hearing this, after seeing this video, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that there could be a connection to these crimes that were committed that same night or not?
Well, law enforcement believe that it happened, on the 13th between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And clearly this is, body cam footage of a traffic stop, it appears, and you see some figures run by. It really depends on how close to the crime scene of the murders, how relevant it is. Oftentimes when police break up a party, people are going to run. It's common. It's really common. So if it's related, I would hope that the police can identify from which residence those four ran from, simply because whoever was responsible for the body cam footage knows where he was standing when that was taken. So it's something that the police can look into. It may amount to a whole lot of nothing, but it's certainly something that we, the general public, can try and discern from where we are on our computer monitors, because there's not enough there really to investigate from our standpoint.
Right. I mean, there's
it's going to be what the police witnessed other than the body cam footage, because they're going to have situational awareness. They're pretty well keen to what's going on beyond their, immediate vicinity. They're going to worry if someone's coming to, interfere with the lawful arrest or the traffic stop or whatnot. So I'm sure wherever this guy was coming from or where he was stopped, it's going to make some sense to the police, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's related to the murders. Everybody's looking at an individual. There's been some speculation, maybe more than one person, but unless they all have the exact same knife, the same manner in which the crimes were committed, one person sneaking around a house is a lot easier than four, for instance.
That's very, very true. I mean, obviously, as I've said on the show a million times already, y'all, the speculations and the possibilities are vast. I mean, the speculations are going wild right now, which we are going to get here into in just a minute. But the possibilities of what happened, who was involved, etc., is vast. It's absolutely expansive. It just keeps going and going and going, which is very frustrating. And yes, it's easy for us to look at that footage and sit there and go, those are the guys. But we don't know. Those could have been a bunch of frat boys also underage drinking, seeing their other friends getting in trouble with 5-0, and they said, yo, let's run. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Exactly. While the police are preoccupied with Bob, let's get the hell out of here. It happens all the time. I was guilty of it at one point in my life. So to me, seeing this scene doesn't really stand out per se as a likely explanation of the murders. Usually in scenarios where there's more than one individual involved, there's always a weak link. Somebody that cracks under all this pressure would probably be saying something that implicates himself and his friends responsible for this. So I strongly believe it's not a group.
Yeah. And we're going to get into your theories here in just a minute because, and I'm glad that you said this because we got to get into this next article title here that, of course, like everybody out here in these internet streets, okay, and all you internet sleuths have been doing your own research. You've been putting together pieces and just trying to come up with your own solutions of what happened here. We do have an article here though, that I do want to pull up here exclusive. Somewhere along the line, something bad happened that angered someone enough to go after them. Retired Moscow police captain says Idaho unaliver or monster was motivated by revenge as victim Kaylee's father reveals she had big open entries. Okay. And of course, I got to use these code words, unfortunately, guys. But what are your thoughts on this? Because I have the theory myself. My ongoing theory is that this person clearly knew at least the layout of the land, knew the layout of the house. Either they had walked in that house before, or they were a close or somewhat close acquaintance, at least, to know what the layout of that house was. What are your thoughts? Do you think that maybe this was, and I do believe that this was a crime of passion, absolutely. So if it was a passionate crime, they had to have known one of the victims in some sort of way. But that's just my theory. What are your thoughts on, what are your theories on what happened here?
Well, I would dispute your premise that the individual was familiar with the interior layout of the house. You can glean that in a matter of minutes just by doing surveillance from the exterior of the home. And I say that because really the house layout is kind of an open book with the size of the windows and how human behavior is, and our own life experience. So you walk through the front door, you imagine that on the ground level is going to be your living room, kitchen area, that kind of thing would first stand out. And then if you followed somebody to the residence and you see the lights start popping on, you know that somebody went in the house and went upstairs to this room or to that room. Mm-hmm. And you can figure out really quickly that people are residing on the second and the third floor. So that's not a hard one to conceive.
Okay.
And if, for instance, if you're stalking the residence and you're behind the home and you see the letter M in the window and you know that your target happened to be Maddie, you can really guess that that's going to be Maddie's room.
But
It's real easy. My point is, it's real easy to figure this out in a matter of minutes.
right, and I see that though. I could see that. I mean, yes, this monster could have been or monsters could have been very lucky, walking in or walking over to the sliding glass door. Oh, it happens to be open. Going into the rooms, because remember, none of the door locks were tampered with. None of the doors were tampered with. There were no issues with any of those things at all. In fact, from what we understand so far, because obviously police have been very, very tight-lipped on this information, but there were no droplets, if you get what I'm saying, outside of the house, walking outside of the house. There were no signs of damage to anything except to those 4 young kids. So I have to ask then, how can someone who's just watching them from afar or was enraged because somebody did something randomly, a stranger, how could that stranger luckily just walk into a place, do these crimes, and then just possibly walk out the front door without a droplet of blood anywhere?
Well, it's really not that hard, Pascal. I mean, it's for starters, it's a knife. Okay, so it was concealed to get there, because obviously, if you're walking the street and you pass somebody and you got this shiny, 8-inch blade knife out in your hand, people are going to notice. So it was most likely sheathed along the side of somebody or even inside of a jacket if it was in their car before they proceeded to the home. So, and then leaving the premises, they're just going to resheath it or put it back in their pocket, for instance. So leaving the residence, not leaving some kind of a blood trail, isn't that hard to imagine. Now, what's likely the scenario is there's going to be a trail from room to room and from victim to victim, so you can tell who was the first victim and who was the second, third, and fourth, so on, because you're going to have a trail of that blood from one victim to the next, and every scene becomes more dirty. So, cross-contamination between victims' blood. And it's highly unlikely that this particular suspect, when handling this knife, did not cut himself because of the hilt on the knife. That's why they came out early on and said that this particular knife is most likely a fixed blade knife. And there was dialogue at one point that they were asking around about a K-bar. Well, that's a name brand. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were looking for a K-bar, but a K-bar style or a combat knife, because it left the hilt mark on their victims, either in the way of a bruise on the body itself or an imprint from the blood on the hilt in fabric. If somebody was defending themselves, it can even swipe the mark of the hilt on their, bedding or their sleeves or something. So they knew it was a fixed blade knife, and the purpose for letting that information out is they're hoping that the public knew of somebody with that kind of a knife, a fixed blade knife with a hilt, would come forward, even if they thought their cousin or buddy or friend was innocent. Bring the information forward so they can, interview them and verify any kind of alibi. Because somebody in Moscow that night had a fixed blade knife and used it in a quadruple homicide.
So, okay, and I hear about the knife and the hilt on the knife, etc. There probably a sheath for the knife, etc. But it's 4 bodies, and the way that they say the scene was, the way that they say that the monster left these scenes of the crime, they make it seem like it's very graphic. So if this was a messy scene in both rooms and there's 4 bodies, how can I guess unless they went into the shower and washed things off, like their whole body, I just don't see how somebody could walk out there without something on them, right? Without dripping. It's 4 bodies. If it was 1, I could see that. But 4, and the way that they say deep, big, open wounds, as they're saying here, according to coroner, et cetera, that is some very, very graphic details.
Right.
So,
well, again, going back to a knife attack, you got to understand the dynamics of blood. We're not, like a balloon full of paint where if you stab it or pop it, it explodes more or less. No.
But if it's the swinging action, the stabbing action, the swinging of an axe, anything like that, as you pull back, there's still red that comes out. There's going to be red that's flying all over the place.
It's called a cast-off stain, and it does happen, but it's very little at first, and as it casts off, centrifugal force causes it to go along the wall and along the ceiling, not on you at the attacker, because your swing is over your head. So you're not going to get it down on you. It's not going to get on your face, but it's going to, centrifugal force will cause it to go up the wall and along the ceiling. It's not going to get on you. And we know historically there's examples of where someone can walk into a busy hotel. There's, it comes to mind this Texas incident where it's an unsolved murder. I can't remember her name. She was attacked. She was one of them back page models that were arranging hookups. Some guy offered to meet her there, walked through a busy hotel, went up, stabbed her multiple times, and left, all on surveillance footage, and not a single person noticed the guy, and he did not behave in such a way that exposed himself. He didn't stop to take a shower first or anything like that. And it's because the only time that you see, spurting blood, for starters, is really kind of like in the movies when, it's to give that dramatic effect. But unless it's an arterial bleed where there is going to be pulsating from your heart pumping the blood, typically it's going to be a gushing or a slow ooze. There isn't a reason for an arterial bleed unless you hit an artery. And sometimes when you hit an artery, it's internally, like in your chest cavity, where you're going to fill up your chest cavity. It's not going to come externally. So he didn't necessarily cut their jugular where it's going to be out, at the, hitting the attacker. But even if it was an arterial bleed from the jugular, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be standing in the line of the pulsating, blood.
Interesting. Because it's Avery Shannon. Thank you so much for the 5. And I will be, if you have any questions, by all means, if you have any questions specifically,
that is the name, Shelby Thornburg. Thank you.
Thornburg, yeah. If you have any questions, by all means, that are directly for Jason or for this discussion, please send them in a super chat. We will make sure that they are read out loud before he has to head out. Okay. And many, many thank yous for that. Avery, thank you so much for the support. Now, when it comes to this, though, now with everything that's been going on, we got to talk about this one piece of information too. There was allegedly, because there's a couple different pieces of information we have to get through here really quick. One of them is the front door being wide open around 8:30 a.m. Apparently, there was a neighbor that saw the door wide open at 8:30 a.m. Now, the chief of police is saying, "Oh, that's all news to me. I didn't know about that. Had I known about that, I'd probably be answering this question in a different way. But that is news to me." What are your thoughts on that piece of information? Shouldn't he know about that information? That seems like a pretty important piece of information that's just being overlooked.
Well, I would think that investigators know, but it doesn't always climb its way to the top. The top cop, the chief. Chief is kind of acting as the PR for his department. The public rep. The PIO, the public information officer. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's, got his elbows rolled, sleeves rolled up, working the case from every little detail. So he's just being honest in an interview when he's saying he did not know that, or he would have answered it differently. But I'm sure he went straight to his investigators and said, what the F, why leave me exposed? Was the door open? And bear in mind, we want to speculate and wonder if the killer left and he left the door open, which would be expected because if he's, got his no gloves or something, he doesn't want to grab the handle and leave DNA on it. But that being said, remember, friends came over and there was a 911 call placed. So how do we know it wasn't the friends coming over and, people coming back and forth? But yes, it would be something that you'd want to trace the steps of everyone that came into the home and make sure that it wasn't left open by somebody responding to an emergency call. Hey, Bob, come over. Somebody's passed out in my house, versus if it was genuinely left open by a fleeing killer.
Because that is very interesting too, given the fact that if it is, say this monster walks out that front door, that also makes me feel that either that's if they went out the front door, that is a sign of some serious confidence in what they have done. It's kind of egotistical, in my personal opinion, that they just walk out the front door like it's nothing. The other part, though, too, is the two surviving victims lived on the first floor. That front door was right by their two doors, their rooms, and they were never bothered. What are your thoughts on that? Was it specifically a target for the four upstairs on the second and third floor? Or do you think that this monster tried their doors, but their doors were locked?
Well, when we don't know, we have to keep our minds open to the possibilities. Okay. So was the person specifically targeting the four, or was he targeting two, and Ethan came out of Xana's room and confronted him, so he had to eliminate Ethan and then went into Xana's room? Or was he intending to clear the entire house and was unaware that there were two bedrooms on the main floor? We don't know, because we don't know who the attacker is to understand his motive just yet. We're all trying to figure out who did this, and then you can start rationalize who was targeting why. So you have to kind of keep your mind open. There were four victims, so any one of them might have been the intended target. Not all four, but any one of them may have been the intended target, or somebody just happened to be nearby, saw that it was a house full of girls and targeted the house. So we don't know. So we have to keep all those investigative theories on the table and explore them all. Otherwise, that's where tunnel vision sets in. And we all know that tunnel vision is a bad concept for law enforcement and should be applicable to the rest of us. We don't want tunnel vision. We don't want to hone in on the wrong person and let the killer escape. So you got to keep your mind open to all the possibilities.
Absolutely.
Not the crazy story, not the crazy theories.
Oh,
but the rational ones. The rational ones, right?
Yes.
It wasn't a hit by Donald Trump and he sent Eric out from Mar-a-Lago. Stuff. So when people say anything's possible, not everything fits the mold of anything. So it can't be aliens. There's no evidence of that. Can't be, an FBI, target. Got to keep to rational points. It's obviously it's somebody in Moscow that night. The question is it somebody that they knew, somebody that was out, enraged, somebody that it was a crime of opportunity, and then whittle it down. At some point, you don't keep expanding to other theories. You got to, at some point, fix your broadening the investigation, start your narrowing to a primary suspect.
Right. Where do you think the murder weapon is right now? Where do you think that the monster put it? Do you think he threw it away? Do you think maybe this person still has it in their possession? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's obviously two answers to that. He either concealed it, hoping that no one would ever find it, or he did ditch it. I don't think he melted it and retooled it to look like an anchor or something for his boat. No. So usually they do ditch a gun or they conceal it somewhere. So law enforcement oftentimes hopes that they conceal it so that they catch him with it in their possession. But oftentimes, especially in this part of the woods, people oftentimes will bury in the woods, in some secluded area that no one knows who the ownership is, and no one's going to randomly pick a spot to dig it up, or they throw it in the river somewhere, because there's plenty of rivers in these parts. So, did it keep it? And it's a calculated risk, because when police reveal what type of murder weapon it is, then you're going to expect the killer to ditch it. I've seen some experts come forward saying that was a mistake to reveal the type of weapon used, because now the killer is not likely to keep it in his possession. But they were hoping that by revealing this information, that it would narrow the focus on particular people at the exclusion of others, because if Joe has a buck knife that flips out, then they're not going to call him in as a tip because it's the wrong kind of knife used. So they were hoping that somebody that knew something about, someone had a fixed knife that night and was showing it off, that person would likely be called in saying, well, Bob that night was showing us his knife. Odd that, a block away, 4 hours later, there's a quadruple murder. So they were hoping that by coming forward with that piece of information, it's calculated. But by coming forward with that piece of information, it would have produced the right lead.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to be looking into some of these theories really, really quick here shortly. But I do want to get your 2 cents on your thoughts on Stephen GonCalves, Kaylee GonCalves' father, that's been stepping forward a lot lately, putting in his 2 cents, let's just say, for lack of a better term. Of course, this is one of the many articles that has been out here. Sorry about that. They have said that this particular article is not entirely true, and that they apparently Fox News just expanded on their own story. But he has said a lot of things as of late with his theories and what he has received from the coroner's office, from the coroner, and all that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he is hurting the investigation, or do you think it doesn't matter at this point?
What Steve GonCalves reminds me of very sincerely is my last client, Sean Paul Schulte of the Kylan Schulte Crystal Turner murders in Moab that we were investigating, where he can't just sit there. He can't just sit there on his hands and do nothing and grow in fear that by doing nothing, the case is going to solve itself. So he's coming forward. He's being outspoken. He's keeping himself busy, keeping the story alive, so that, he's hoping to assist law enforcement getting the case, closure quicker. And the differences are, Sean Paul opened up a clue booth and was taking information directly from the public, where here Steve is revealing information, hoping to excite the public to pinpoint somebody, because if you know something and would like to say something, but you're like that kind of standoff kind of person, it's like, oh, it's probably not my best friend. My best friend wouldn't do that. I'm not going to say anything. But if you say the right combination of things, leak it out, if you will, that maybe someone will come forward and say, I didn't want to say something, but my roommate was acting suspicious that night. Here's what I know. So he's trying to aid the process. If he thought for a minute that it would hinder the investigation or thwart the prosecution, he wouldn't be saying anything at all. But
Yeah.
I respect what Steve's doing, because I think that he's doing his part as a grieving victim family member, because he feels like he has the time and he's got the bully pulpit to do something about it. And, you can't silence somebody that feels that impassioned.
Yeah.
And I've seen his pain in other clients of mine before.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, he is definitely, everybody grieves in their own way, especially with something like this. And this is something so unthinkable. I can only imagine how any other parent would react to something so heartbreaking like this. It's devastating. And I feel his pain. And I do think that for him, he is, I think he's trying to stay active, because if he gets inactive, I think that gives him more time to think and dwell on the depression and the dark side of losing his daughter. So I think this is his way of just trying to stay out of it. And of course, if he can get the bad guy, then that can calm some of the feelings, right? Justify some of the feelings that he has inside of his body right now,
Right.
I definitely feel you on that. Go ahead.
Well, and as a private investigator, with this kind of experience, I do see there's plenty to work with to pursue an independent investigation. So for Steve to reach out to private investigators the way that he did, to have them do stuff, it should be encouraged, because many times somebody out there knows something that would not otherwise come forward because of their own background, their own experience with law enforcement, or distrust or hatred towards the police, won't go forward. But they may go talk to Steve's private investigator because there's no threat of arrest. There's the guarantee of anonymity with their information. And at the end of the day, the only thing that people are interested is in the information, not the source. But private investigators can keep their source anonymous, keep the information confidential, and relay that to law enforcement. With a good, healthy working environment, that PI will have the direct phone number to the detective or an email and convey it directly, because it's a reliable, vetted information, not just some whimsical detail from a curiosity seeker trying to share information where he could be like 5 states away sending information that he analyzed online, which, situations like that, probably law enforcement has had 100 examples of the same outcome.
Yes. Of course, we have already known that it's been going crazy out here on Reddit, on online forums, etc., chat rooms, you name it. It has been getting really, really wild and crazy here. I do have a super chat, and I'm glad that she asked this last question at the end. But this question is for you, of course. So I'm going to piggyback off of what you say here. This super chat here, Avery. Thank you so much for the 20. Please tell us your thoughts on the crime scene worked from the inside out versus outside in. So I'm going to start with that question first.
Well, you're always going to want to focus your attention to the immediate crime scene. The heart of the crime scene is where the victim lies, and you'll work your way out. Yeah, you're not going to, like, for instance, respond to a crime and start doing forensics on the door handle without first understanding what took place inside, because inside will give you more clues than the exterior of the premises. So you always work from closest to the victims and work your way out, because, for instance, where this is a hands-on kind of crime, it's not like a shooter from a half a block away in a scope. No, he's hands-on, and there's the chance of a struggle, a fight. Oftentimes, victims will claw their attacker and get DNA underneath their nails, or in the struggle, the killer may have dropped the knife.
Right.
And so DNA will be present where the knife had to then be picked up, or maybe he, while there was a hands-on struggle, he cut himself, and so there's his own DNA from blood left at the crime scene. So that's paramount to really do it from the inside to the out.
Absolutely. Also, I do want to point out as well, of course, Chris McDonough found a glove in the crime scene area. Apparently, that glove was one of the gloves that was supposed to be covering some of the victims' hands because, of course, they want to make sure that they can scrub those for DNA and all that as well. So that's something that when you mentioned gloves, I was just wanted to point that out really quick. The gloves that were found in the crime scene was not something that maybe the monster left behind or anything. It was from one of the people involved in the investigation. So I just want to make that abundantly clear for everyone. Real quick, going back to this, part 2 of the question is cars not towed day 2. Yeah, what's up with that? What's up with that? Why haven't they towed those cars? There's a bunch of cars there. Why haven't they been towed?
Well, chances are they had nothing to do with the commission of the crime. That was just the personal vehicles of the victims. So unless the attacker was a passenger in the car and then something transpires in the home that created the rage that ended in the murders, then the cars have little to no value whatsoever.
Okay. That's a good answer there. Oh, also, I do want to say this too. And I don't know about you. Let me take this down really quick. I got a question for you though too. The glove being found in the crime scene, obviously later on only to be debunked, because of course the people went wild with this, thinking that it was finding OJ's glove out there. Okay, and they said it was from people that were investigating on the scene. Is that normal? Is that normal procedure to leave something behind, or is that sloppy behavior?
Well, they should take it out with them, but maybe there's an explanation why they left it there. That's the best I can answer, because not being there present myself, I can't say that it was deliberate, because I do know for a fact that if they touch something with the glove and they don't want to, because remember, everything you touch, there will be a transfer. You leave something behind and you take something with you. So if they touch something with that glove, they may have intended to leave it there for someone in the crime scene unit to pick up later, because they don't want to just stick it in their pocket and remove it from the crime scene. So there is potentially a logical explanation why the glove was left behind.
Interesting, because I think a lot of people are looking at that and saying, "Oh, that's just law enforcement being sloppy as hell." But if that's
not when you're dealing with forensics, because anything you touch, you take with you. So, and eventually you take it down to nothing if you keep touching it. Just like when you keep testing something, you take something away and make it smaller and smaller and less usable down the road. So there may be an explanation, or it may just be simply the fact that we're done with the crime scene, it's released, and so someone took the glove off into an area of the home that is unrelated to the crime itself, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to leave it here. Where's a trash can? I don't see one. I'll just leave it here." So it doesn't necessarily mean, but we would hope that it's going to be documented and cataloged that I did this and I left my glove there, because someone may come along down the road and say, "Look what I found," and it has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. Let's get back to that super chat here really quick. 3, Steve's anger justified? I think we kind of already covered that. I think it's justified, and it's understandable.
Yeah, for the most part, I don't necessarily think that he's like that angry at the department, but it's more like frustration. It's more the desire to make a difference, and it translates as anger, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, like in 2 weeks when there's an announcement that they have an arrest, it's not something irreparable where the police are going to like not let him be part of the conversation at that point. There'll be maybe even an apology, and they'll say, "Oh, there's no apology necessary. It was maybe you said something that got, this to this moment. So, you really can't blame Steve. And I don't think the police, being professionals, are going to take it personally.
Yeah.
But it's good fodder. I mean, obviously it hits the news, but that is the point. He wants people to hear the story, pay attention to what he's saying, and then react.
Yeah. I also feel that there's obviously it's not only just anger. I think that there's a underlining energy of desperation that he just wants to light a fire under everybody's ass. Like he just wants
He doesn't want it to get cold.
Exactly.
And he's not necessarily angry at the police. He's angry at who's responsible to, took his little daughter off the face of this planet.
Exactly.
That's where the anger really is directed. And he wants that to mean something. He can't just sit there and do nothing.
Absolutely. Last question here on this super chat. Argument Ethan had at a frat party. Is it related? Hugs and kisses. Well, hugs and kisses back to you too, Avery. Yes. And this is the reason why I said I'm going to piggyback off of that question. And we do have another question for you here really quick. But there is new story out here, coming out here in the internet streets now, saying something along the lines of Ethan got into a fight or an altercation with somebody at a frat house, at the frat party that he was at with Xana. Then they went home, and of course, all hell broke loose. Have you heard anything about that? Did you hear any rumors about that? And what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard anything along that line. I mean, that's one of my initial queries early on in the investigation. I even posted something like that on Facebook on the 25th of November, asking for anybody at the frat house to come forward and share any information to me about potentially some altercation involving Ethan at the party. And the reason why I speculated that, I theorized that at the time, is because mainly there was two developing theories early on. That you got two pretty girls at the corner club bar, on Main Street. They leave, they go to the grub truck, and, potentially someone could have followed them from there to the house. And we also know that Ethan and Xana were at the frat party. Did something happen at the frat house that somebody followed them to the house? So those are the really two strongest theories that were early in development, because everything else is just out of desperation, because if something transpired that was related to their activities that night, that's how it would have come about. And usually at a frat party, bunch of, drinking going on between brothers in the house. Somebody may or may not have known Xana was dating another brother, another member, and tried hitting on her. And, you can visualize in your mind in the altercation, yo, bro, that's my girl. And, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And sometimes it can escalate because drunken behavior. We don't know that, but it was certainly one of the things I was toying with, and I have never had confirmation, despite posting that and sharing it around Moscow. Nothing came forward.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a whole thing. There's a whole somebody came out with this crazy, very graphic, detailed story revolving around some names, some guys. I guess I'm assuming that they're naming these names are some of his brothers in the frat house, and basically saying that they got into this kind of altercation, and it all had to do with Xana and Madison, and that it had nothing to do with Kaylee, which is kind of just throwing people off, of course, because we do have Steve GonCalves coming out here saying that her wounds, Kaylee's wounds, were drastically different than Madison's, so on and so forth.
Right.
Of course, it's leading us down a different path, basically saying, oh, maybe Kaylee was the target. Now, these other stories that are being put out here are saying something drastically different. But again, this is the rabbit hole in which Reddit is, has been concocting. It's the cauldron that's been stewing over there in Reddit, and I don't know if that stuff is true or not with the frat house stuff as well.
Yeah, and I always question that stuff. We're a month into this, unless somebody has come forward with a direct knowledge of this. I question anything now on those groups, those chat boards or Reddit or anything like that, because sometimes a rumor can turn into a story, can turn into fact if you don't properly source it. So
right.
Unless some member of Chi Omega comes to me and says, I was there, yes, Ethan did get in an altercation over Xana, then I question the validity of that, because we're a month into this, and if the police hadn't already verified that story, then it's probably not likely so.
But you can't forget, though, too, there's a brotherhood, there's a bro code, there's a frat code. I would assume.
I understand that, but you got a dead brother in that house, and I don't think that would override some desire for silence. No, another member kills someone. It's very rare that someone's going to keep that kind of silence over it, because it's plausible.
Right.
There was an altercation, and here, let me put the scenario for you.
Shoot.
The guy's not familiar with Kaylee and Xana's home. He just knows that there's lights on. He followed Xana and Ethan from the party. All he knows is lights are coming on. It's one of those rooms. He goes in there. He goes to the third floor thinking that's where he's going to find Ethan, because Ethan never came back out. He was waiting for Ethan to leave so he could jump him out in the street. And he kills 2 people in that room. Sorry, not Ethan. Goes to the next room and goes after Xana and Ethan there. And we know that Xana, after Xana's room, the killer leaves. So is it that he left because his intended target was Ethan? Ethan was likely the one found in the hallway by the bathroom. So he got his intended target, and so there's no reason to go down to the main floor and go after the other 2 roommates. And that's a possibility.
Yeah,
it certainly explains why he would leave 2 roommates and not clear everybody in the house.
Right. The possibilities are endless for sure. Julie or July, hopefully I got it somewhat right. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Sorry I'm late. This may have been covered. Can he give us his thoughts on the 4 men who came in with beards and cowboy hats and one moody van door? Yeah, exactly. He was struggling to get into that car. That van door was not letting him in. But that is a very good question. There were a bunch of men that were, 4 or 5 men that walked out of the crime scene. Some media was there covering, trying to ask them questions. They had their heads down, trying to cover their faces. They got into this van and they drove off. Could they be U.S. Marshals? Are they other FBI agents? Are they undercover? Who do you think those 4 guys were?
Well, usually the bearded guys are usually detectives that work undercover, and certainly if they're trying to conceal their faces from cameras, that's probably wise, because they're used to doing undercover work. So they just happen to be caught there, with cameras rolling while they're there to offer their 2 cents. Because, I'm sure everybody within the department, within the county, has been brought off of their usual beat to kind of help out with this.
Right. I know that a lot of us have been thinking that they're marshals. And of course, they're maybe trying to track down somebody that may have crossed state lines.
But there wouldn't be a reason to go into the crime scene that way. That's most likely detectives, and usually, like they're detectives that were assigned undercover work somewhere like in narcotics or some kind of task force.
Okay. Interesting. This is, like I said, very, very interesting to stuff that's been going on here. And even Ashley Oaks just said it makes sense. A lot of what you're saying is making a lot of sense. And so I do appreciate you coming on and, just breaking this down with us, because again, there's so many questions here this is the most tight-lipped I've seen law enforcement on a particular case in a very long time.
Oh, I
Especially
think
when it's
Delphi was worse. I think
oh
Delphi was
Delphi.
worse.
Oh, I'm just saying as of late. Delphi's
Okay.
5 years ago. I'm saying as of late. Lately, they've been going up doing press conferences, and there have been at least one breadcrumb of information. Lately, with this case, they come up and they haven't really been saying anything at all. They've just been saying, "Hey, we're doing our job, we're doing our best," so on and so forth. They haven't even given one shred of hints or clues, or even saying, "Hey, we have this stuff, we're looking at this stuff right now," right? And this is what causes everyone on the internet, social media, to just go wild with thoughts and theories and ideas.
Well,
So
I would disagree with that. I think the key points have already been brought forward, and there's really nothing more to discuss at this point. We know what the type of knife was, a fixed blade knife with a hilt. We know that from Steve that he perceives that Kaylee's injuries were different than at least Maddie. But I would disagree with that because he's coming from an untrained person. He's seen he saw his daughter, but I don't think he necessarily saw the autopsy reports or had the benefit of comparing with the others. But lacerating a liver and things of that nature just means that the victim was stabbed lower in their upper abdomen rather than in their chest, and which may because of the ribs give a little have a little less barrier to and cause more damage because there's nothing really to slow a blade down like a rib or something. So what was it really different? It opens the door, that kind of speculation, to say, was there more than one attacker with different levels of strength? Was it that she was targeted over the other one? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It might have mean that this guy's never killed a human being before, and so he was overly aggressive than he needed to be, and maybe even weakened himself or dialed it back a little because it was so easy to kill his first target. So it's better to understand who was first, second, third, fourth, and go that route. And if once you figure out the sequence of the murders and then determine who was more injured than the others, it might reveal something. Like, for instance, if, like, going back to what we were explaining earlier, is maybe Kaylee was first, but Ethan was last. And maybe Ethan being last, he was injured more than anybody else in the room, but it's maybe because he followed the attacker out in the hallway and there was a fight and a struggle out in the hall, or maybe because he was that intended target coming from the frat party. It takes somebody with the experience and the know-how and a access to all of the information to make these proper determinations. And just being familiar with one of the victims isn't necessarily thorough enough to really say for sure that it. But reversing myself, taking another viewpoint, maybe Steve is right. Maybe Kaylee was a bigger target, the intended target of the night, because we know Murphy was there. And we know that Murphy was pushed into another room. Well, why? And you can speculate about that. Why was Murphy in a room, and why wouldn't Murphy alert that there's some attacker attacking Kaylee or anybody else in the house? I know if someone came into my home, my dog Lily would really light up, and the killer probably wouldn't get past the first room because of Lily. But I have a German Shepherd. Maybe Murphy's docile. Maybe Murphy will only bark at strangers. Maybe Murphy would not bark at the killer that Murphy knows well.
Right. So, and we talked about this last night too, with the golden labradoodle. This dog Murphy, I mean, he anything's possible, right? You got
to go to the source. Who's familiar with Murphy? Like, ask the other two roommates, how was Murphy in the house? go to other owners or co-owners. How would Murphy behave in your home, to strangers, to non-strangers, to people walking by out front? You know, some dogs, as soon as there's any kind of movement outside, they're at the window barking their heads off. Like for instance, the mailman hates your dog. Other dogs can sit there and you know, you can beat them and they don't even make a whimper. So
Yeah,
you don't know. You got to know the dog. You got to be familiar with the dog's behavior.
absolutely. And Murphy is definitely, I feel, something to look at as well. He could be a key to a lot of different things.
Right.
So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Like for instance, if I was the owner, but you're not going to take the dog with you because that would be a dead giveaway. But if you were the owner, you'd be like, oh, I don't want you getting all messy. I don't want you to get all dirty, and you go put you in the room.
Right.
But maybe that's Murphy's typical bedroom, or often gets left in that room by mistake because Murphy loves the bedding in that room. You never know. You got to find out what is Murphy's behavior, and would it be common for that dog to be shut in that room by mistake? Or, you know, you got to find out. You got to find out from the living, surviving roommates,
Right,
what the routine was.
Yeah, I mean, that's really big information because, you know, even myself, I got dogs myself too, and my dogs are skittish as hell. I say it all the time. My dogs will go crazy anytime the ice machine just drops ice into the ice tray. It just goes crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Just go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Skittish dogs, right? Is Murphy the exact same way? Is he a skittish dog? Is he not? Is he just super docile and super friendly to everyone? Or does he have, like you said, people that he doesn't like, or people that he just doesn't vibe with? That is a good, very, very good question, because if you have somebody, an intruder, going inside that house and he doesn't make a peep, that's one thing to think about. But then on top of it, it does make you wonder, if the intruder went in, did the girls hear the dog barking like crazy or not? That's another question to think about as well. So I do appreciate that piece of information. Avery, we got a super chat here from Avery. One more. If it's a serial killer and the average cooling off period is 30 days, with this being all over the news, would he strike again soon? That's a good question.
It really depends. I mean, you can sit back and analyze the behaviors of past serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
There were sometimes months and months, not just 30 days, but months between actions, murders, like Ted Bundy, for instance. You know, there was a lot that were within close proximity, you know, in duration, close timing from one to the next, and sometimes it would go months and months and months. So I don't necessarily believe 30 days, like they're sitting there on some meter counting the days down to their next attack, but it's usually a profiler's average calculations that there could be another attack. But I think in light of all the hype and all the attention, he's still thriving off all the news coverage of this one, and is satisfying his interest, his need for this, because he sees every time it's on the news, this is another one of his souvenirs. He doesn't have to sit home and fantasize about it. He's living it every day that it's on the news.
Absolutely. And also, he's keeping his head on a swivel right now, watching every single show that he can get his hands on to see.
He may be even watching this one.
Yeah, he may be watching this one. Sup, we're going to get you. But you know for a fact that he's watching everything he can to see if they're hot on his trail or not, if they figured out the puzzle or not. I do have okay, I got a couple more questions for you real quick. But before we do that, please, guys, hit that like button, show some love, hit that like button down below, send it past 1,000 likes. Let's get it to 1K. A like doesn't cost a thing. It helps the algorithm, gets the words out, the word out here about this story, about this conversation. And of course, give some love to Private Eye, Jason Jensen, as well, by hitting that like button down below. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. You're missing out on one of the best parties in the world, which is the Pascal Show. So hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, now there is something that I do have to ask you. This has been going crazy. People are going nuts about this Hyundai Elantra. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is just a very, very big, huge, gigantic, broad stroke? Or Do you think this is like a big smoking gun piece of evidence that we need right now?
Well, it was a Saturday night, and people are out and about. It could have been just simply somebody that was at a party or sleeping over that night. It may not be related to this, but the police are asking about that particular car is because it's not a resident. I mean, if it was a neighbor and it's always there, them asking about it would be insignificant. But by the fact that there was an observation of a white 2011 Hyundai Elantra, and they don't know who's the owner of it, and that they've even characterized it as maybe it's somebody that witnessed something. So it may be somebody that they're hoping that if they left between the hours of 3 and 4, they might have seen somebody walking down the sidewalk or passed them on the sidewalk or saw somebody stand behind a tree. You don't know. So could have been a witness, could have been a suspect. Do I suspect the killer's driving a 2011 Elantra? Possibly, but it's kind of inconsistent to the type of knife that was used. He'd be driving mommy's car most likely than his own vehicle.
Yeah, I keep thinking. My theory is that if there was said 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra that was white, that was in the area, that has anything possible to do with this situation, I feel like it could have been stolen. And the next place they're going to find it is going to be ditched somewhere, maybe torched off on some random vacant lot. That's just what I think. I know that might be a wild assumption, but I don't know. There's a lot of Elantras in the world. There's a lot of Hyundais in the world. I think it was stolen and maybe used as a getaway.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I don't have any reason to suspect that by now. It would pop up somewhere, a mall parking lot in Boise or ditched at the side of the road. Or like you said, if they burned it out, they would have found some burned out car by now. But my guess is most likely, given the volume of the traffic on a Saturday night in that area, I'd say that the odds are that it's probably not related to the killer. I would think the killer got there on foot.
So you think it was on foot?
Right.
And then they just sauntered out the front door in a hazmat suit or bagged their stuff up and walked out. I mean, that's the one thing I'm still trying to figure out. It's just all that. Getting the you got a lot of red everywhere, and I get the trajectory.
I ask all your viewers, go look at the video of the assailant living the hotel room in the Shelby Thornburg case. It's out there. Just Google Shelby Thornburg. There's a video of the killer wearing shorts, sunglasses, and a T-shirt, and nothing stands out. And it was a bloody murder. All of her crime scene photos have been shared online. Go look at that bloody mess, and then look at the video of the guy leaving and go, why is this a cold case? This is a video of the killer leaving the hotel, and there's not been a single person to come forward to identify that individual. And it was a bloody scene used with a knife. So why isn't that solved? When you put that in perspective, all of these questions that come out about this crime and how can you kill 4 people and just leave and not be detected, it comes very clear when you see how easily it can be done.
Gotcha. And I see that. I get that. It's just interesting then the other part then. Forget the hazmat suits, forget the trajectory of red everywhere, all that stuff. This monster being able to successfully go into the house, in and out of the house, 1, undetected, 2, without breaking any of the windows, breaking any of the locks on the doors or anything of that sort. That's the part that does blow my mind, and I feel like it blows a lot of other people's minds as well. He walked into 2 different rooms. Now, there's that theory of those 2 roommates, the girls could have just had an open door policy, like, hey, you can come in anytime you want type of deal, or this person may have known the codes to the doors. still, no matter what, those doors were not kicked in, were not tampered with. The locks weren't tampered with. So this, to me, feels like it's very personal, that this person knew the ins and outs of this home. Sure, you can walk in there and figure it out in 2 seconds and just glean through it and just, oh, that must be the way upstairs and this must be the way down to the front door. Sure. But the fact that those doors never got tampered with screams to me that this person knew his victims.
No, I would disagree with that.
Okay.
Redirecting you to another incident not too far from that was the skinning of the dog. And one of the things that the owners of the dog said is from that, we started locking our doors. Okay. Moscow, Idaho was such a small, safe community. It was like Salt Lake in the 80s. We didn't lock our doors. We didn't care to lock our doors. We felt safe. Now, I'm sure everybody locks their doors and people walk in pairs and only in the light and stuff like that. But if you think you're safe enough that you don't need to lock the doors, that's why he got in without tampering or forced entry, because the door was unlocked.
So
friends could come and go. They didn't need to go downstairs and let them in. It's not like, like an episode of Seinfeld or something where you got to buzz them in and stuff like that. No, you're not talking Chicago. We're talking Moscow, Idaho, where the last murder was a long time ago, as opposed to 6 a weekend. So
gotcha.
Different kind of community, different kind of lifestyle, different vibe. Nobody thought for a minute that night that they were in danger, or they might have locked the doors.
But then I would have a little bit of pushback on that. Okay, just to challenge you a little bit, Jason. Now, if that's the case, if that was the case, that this was just some random guy and they had the open door policy and everything, so that he just walked in on luck, he just walked through that sliding, whoa, open door, or like open sliding glass door, this is going to be a piece of cake, went into the second floor to that room, possibly. That door is unlocked. Whoa, eureka, goes up to the third floor. The other room is unlocked. Wow. Boom. Like that easy? That easy. This guy didn't even know that at least they leave their doors open so that he doesn't have to figure out a keypad, because each door had a key lock or a keypad lock. You see what I'm saying? He had to at least known that walking into that house, or he would have been sitting there going, how do I unlock these doors? What are the codes?
Right, but we don't know these people. We never met them. We don't know how they ran their house. So maybe he tried to go in the week before and it was locked. And this night he happened to get in because everybody's used to dealing locking the door, but that night she didn't. We don't know. I mean, it's not like all 4 occupants will always go check their doors. If they think that I don't have to do this, Kaylee will do it. She always checks the door. Maybe that night she forgot. We don't know. We don't know enough about these people or how they ran their house.
Gotcha. Got another super chat and a member's comment. Avery Shannon, thank you so much for the 10. She said, dang it, one more. The 30-year-old man living on Greek Road who heard a scream changed his Facebook post and is just weird. Thoughts? Enan Harsh is his name. I honestly, personally, just to answer this one and just really quick, my personal opinion, I think he changed his Facebook post because of maybe the amount of attention he's been getting. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. I'm not him. I don't think it has anything to do with him being like the bad guy. I think it's just everyone now is looking him up. Everyone now is probably harassing him or maybe hitting him up to the point of harassment, and he just doesn't want any of that smoke. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
I agree with you 100%, Pascal. Enan Harsh was a cook who got home from work at 1:30 in the morning, and he says about the time that he was dozing off to bed about 4 a.m., he heard a scream, but he dismissed it, thinking it sounded like a party sound. Maybe he did just hear a party sound, but maybe, just maybe, it was one of the victims screaming. Does it matter? He's innocent if he is an ear witness and heard something. So it's really hard to really say that he deserves anything other than thank you for coming forward, because anytime we harass these people, it prevents others from coming forward. You have to stop the nonsense. Let the people come forward, say what they think or saw or heard, and leave it be at that. But when we turn every witness into a potential suspect, that just means there's less witnesses willing to come forward. People have to stop.
And also, just because somebody may seem a little socially awkward does not automatically mean that they're the ones that were in that room doing the unthinkable, ungodly things to those kids. I just have to say that it's unfair just because there's been people that have been interviewed, etc., that they're going, oh, that guy's awkward, or he's kind of smirking during this interview, or whatever. Oh, he did it. Doesn't automatically mean that that's the person that did it. Okay, guys?
Yeah, like, for instance, when Jeremy Reagan was coming forward and doing interviews, just because he was a neighbor, people tried to turn on him, saying that he could have been the killer because he's trying to be too helpful. No, he was just not saying no to reporters, and everybody deserves their 15 minutes of fame, even if it's for a sad occasion like this. Let the guy have his minute talking to the media. And it's pretty sad that he had to admit publicly that, hey, I'm a little awkward socially. It's like, what a shame. He's got to defend himself to the ugly internet mob because he happened to be the neighbor of a horrific, gory crime. So, let the guy talk to the media. He's sharing information with us, the people that are curious about what happened that day, and all we do is then turn on them and shut them down. So now, if Jeremy doesn't interview anymore, that's at our loss, but it also doesn't mean that, oh, he stopped talking, he's hiding something now. No, he's trying to avoid the mob. Leave the guys alone. You don't know who did it. Stop turning on everybody just because their name is associated to this crime, to this investigation, not as a perpetrator, but because they happen to be a neighbor, a friend, an ex-boyfriend. We don't know who did it. Leave them all alone. Let the police do their job.
Right. I concur with that. I completely agree with that too. Real quick, I do have a Janice Inspirational Leadership. She's been a member for the past 3 months. I really do appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And you could do the same by hitting that join button down below and become a family member of the show. Support the show in any way you can. Got some great deals going on with PascalMerch.com. Go check that out when you can. But anyway, she says, hi from the UK. Hi. Are the family really allowed to get their own PI? There's 2 questions here. So that's the first one. And this is a very good question because we are talking to a badass private investigator right here. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Well, anybody can hire a private investigator at any time for any reason. It's a private relationship. It's a private decision, hence the name private. And it just means that it distinguishes us from a public investigator, somebody paid by taxpayers for a government entity. We work for private citizens or corporations or whatever. In a scenario like this, a victim of a crime could hire a private investigator to conduct an independent investigation, meaning independent of the police, because sometimes we get clues that we have access to that the police don't. For instance, when witnesses are unwilling or reluctant to talk to police.
There it is. And I think the family can do whatever they want
Right.
of this.
If it makes them feel better, let them.
Right.
One thing that the PIs can expect is that the police will share all their information with them. That will never happen. That's why when people consult with me and how I just explained it is we conduct independent investigations. Our job is to identify and vet new leads that the police may not have had access to. We're not going to solve it instead of the police. We don't have the lab. We don't have access to the crime evidence for the results, or anything like that from forensics. So, we are here to augment their efforts, not to replace it.
So can police actually give their PI information, like inform them, not inform the family, but inform the PI? Can they do that? Is that possible?
Right. At times they do give us some information. They don't typically give us access to the entire file. That will at sometimes happen more commonly if it's a cold case. But a hot case like this, they're not likely to share anything with us except to confirm a particular detail, or maybe if they think that we have access to a witness that they've been shut down. Like, I'll give you an example here in Salt Lake, the Joseph Salas case, who was found dead floating in the Jordan River. There was wide speculation that it might have had something to do with the homeless community. It may be that someone in the homeless community was a witness or something. Mm-hmm. And police have no relationship with the homeless in Salt Lake. And so, family hiring me to go interview people in that community made sense, even to the police, because they knew that we would have greater results than they, because they're shunned by that community because they've been abused by law enforcement for a long time.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to, that certain families do have private investigators, because there's only so much that once the case goes cold, God forbid it happens with this particular case, but when the case does go cold, I mean, there needs to be someone out there that's going to go and keep searching for the truth and knows the ins and outs and the tricks, right? To get more information out there that maybe law enforcement overlooked, or right, maybe felt like they exhausted that idea, but maybe the private investigator's theory might take them to that next level of finding out what really happened to their loved one. And so, yeah, that's big. I mean, shoot, hopefully the GonCalves family is calling you. In my personal opinion, I hope they're calling you up and saying, "Hey, Jason, what up? Help us out." I hope, because you're very skilled. You're very skilled and very knowledgeable at what you do. So, man, even the other families as well, not only just the GonCalves family. There's 4 families altogether that need to find out more truth on what actually happened here. And I really do hope that they're thinking, or at least looking, in your direction right now, Jason.
They deserve closure, and whoever can help, I'm certainly available. If they would like my help, I'm here to help.
Absolutely. Jason, I'm going to let you go because you've been here longer than you said you were willing to be on, and I do appreciate you coming on for as long as you did, because there's so many questions, so many theories, and there's more than just what we talked about. That's just the tip of the iceberg in regards to the theories that have been running rampant all over social media right now. But I do appreciate you coming in, putting in your 2 cents and your thoughts on all this. But to wrap everything up, what is your full theory on what actually happened in that house on November 13th?
Well, that is really the question. And, to hone in on only one particular theory, I think is malpractice, because we don't know enough. Once you identify a suspect, that's a different story. So you kind of have to operate on multiple levels, and sometimes having multiple open theories is the way to go. And, it sounds like we're going back to square one to say it was either that one of those occupants was targeted or the home was targeted. And since we don't know which is which, it's hard to really say with certainty one overrides the other, because you want to keep your mind open. You don't want tunnel vision. You don't want to alienate friends and families and harass, witnesses. You want to keep an open channel and let this information come in. Leave the witnesses alone. If they're coming forward, it's not because they're trying to be clever and outsmart the law. They are trying to help. We all want to help. Don't harass the witnesses. But I do believe it's in either or scenario. One of those occupants was targeted, or the home was. And the home is an easy one to target. If you're deranged, under the influence that night, and you see some pretty girls inside, that might have been the invitation. It might have been there was an altercation or someone followed the girls from the bar. Keep an open mind, but it's somebody in Moscow that night, and we want to find out who it was.
Absolutely. It definitely was somebody. Somebody out there was doing something unthinkable. And that is what really
So
matters.
I would really highly encourage, if there's somebody out there that you can't pinpoint where they were on the evening of the 12th to the 13th, call it in just to play it safe. Let them be interviewed and offer their alibi. You may stumble across the killer unknowingly, because I know of someone that lives there, and I don't know what he was doing that night. Find out. Report it. Someone will follow up.
Right. I mean, speak up. And it does seem like a lot of people have been calling law enforcement, giving them pieces of information. And of course, a lot of it can be just leading them down the wrong down the wrong alley, wrong street, and all that. But that's their job. Their job is to
Right. You gotta. It's like those mazes. It's like those mazes where you go down paths and they go to dead ends, but one path does lead to the center of the puzzle. So
exactly.
Call them in. It may be a dead end. It's not a waste of time.
Yes, but so I do appreciate you coming out and being a part of the conversation. Actually, one question I see here, Kelsey's-ification or something, just said something along the lines of, do we know if we're ever going to hear anything about the autopsies? If they're going to put out the reports anywhere anytime soon, so on and so forth.
Anyone familiar with like Gabby Petito? I'm sure the coroner there in Idaho is going to play it the same way. There was information. The coroner did share details, but they're probably not likely to publish the actual reports, and they're probably not going to give additional information. Probably somebody was chewed out over what was revealed to begin with. So I think what we got from the autopsy, we're privileged to know just that much.
Right on. I guess only time will tell as well. Maybe more will come out, and maybe later on this coming month, and so on. But again, has been 30 days so far. It's been a month since this unthinkable crime, and we still don't know what the hell is going on. But it's nice to have professionals like private investigator Jason Jensen on the show to clear some of these things up, so that we don't keep going down these dark tunnels that just end up with us being in some weird, crazy conspiracy theories. So again, Private Eye, Jason Jensen, I really do appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for being here and blessing us with your time, man. Seriously.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, Pascal. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon. Blessings.
Thanks.
So, guys, that is what we have so far. I mean, please, guys, if you can, go follow him on Facebook. He has an amazing page talking about these particular cases, missing persons, everything within the realm of true crime. So please go and check out Jason Jensen. He is extremely, extremely thorough and well thought out, as you can see on this show and on the many shows he's been on before. Okay. So I do appreciate you guys for coming in, being a part of the conversation. But really quick, I do want to say this though, too. Just a little bit of a left turn, but please, I do have a link down below. It's something just before the holidays. If you're interested in a possible chance of winning $100, that's right, $100, please join me over on Swagit, on the Swagit app. All you got to do is go over there, download the app, make a profile, follow the Pascal Show over there on the Swagit app. That's SWAGIT. And you get a chance for winning $100 from myself and the people over at Swagit. Okay. This is also exclusive behind the scenes footage and videos that I'm only going to be uploading on Swagit alone. Nowhere else. You're not going to see it on TikTok, not on the IG, nowhere, not even shorts on YouTube. Exclusive content from me on that app. So go over. It is in the description box down below. all right, at the top of the page, and I will be pinning it in the comments section, down in the comments section after this show. Please go over there. Huge giveaway just in time for the holidays. So if you need those extra bucks, shoot, if you just need it for gas, come on, gas ain't cheap, y'all. Then please go follow me on Swagit. Download the Swagit app. Find the Pascal Show, one word, on Swagit. Hit that follow for a chance for a big $100 giveaway. Cash money, baby. You know that's nice. Okay? But anyway, guys, it is time to get going. I appreciate all y'all for being here. Okay? Seriously, it's been a blessing. Okay? It's been a real blessing. You guys have been dope. Again, show Jason Jensen as much love as you can. If you're on Facebook, please go and follow him, etc. The man is extremely, extremely knowledgeable in his field, and you saw it. You heard him say what he needed to say. So I appreciate all y'all. Do me a favor, though, okay? Outside of downloading that app and joining me over on Swagit, on the Swagit app, please, before you do that too, hit that like button down below, all right? And do not forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. Then you're missing out on the greatest party on these YouTube streets. So hit that subscribe button. Anyway, guys, it's time to get going. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Have a blessed and positive day. You deserve it. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.